God placed this word directly in your path because He knows what is happening deep within your soul. This moment is not random. You were led here for a reason. And you need to hear this before the next door opens in your life. Something has been moving behind the scenes. Something greater than what your eyes can currently see. While you thought you were simply scrolling, searching, or passing through another ordinary moment, heaven was already aligning this encounter long before you arrived. There is a reason your spirit would not let you turn away from this message. There is a reason you are listening right now. You have been standing at the edge of a shift you can feel but cannot yet explain. The pressure, the waiting, the silent battles, the questions you have carried alone, none of it has been ignored. God has seen every hidden tear, every sleepless night, every moment you almost gave up because nothing around you seemed to change. But this message is your confirmation that movement has already begun. What once felt delayed is now starting to unfold with power and precision. Do not dismiss this moment. Do not treat this as coincidence. The hand of God has been guiding you toward this exact encounter because your season is changing faster than you realize. Something is awakening inside you. Clarity is coming. Strength is rising. The light that has been buried beneath fear, exhaustion, and disappointment is breaking through again. And now that you are here, something is about to shift. You are standing at the threshold between what was and what is about to be. The version of you that survived the last season cannot remain where God is leading you now. Something holy is pulling at your spirit, calling you beyond fear, beyond hesitation, beyond the need to understand every step before you move. This is not the time to cling to old patterns or familiar places. This is the moment to recognize that heaven has been preparing you for a crossing. Like Peter stepping out onto the water, your transformation will begin the moment you choose trust over certainty. The waves may still rise around you, but the voice calling you forward is greater than the storm trying to hold you back. You were not created to live trapped inside cycles that no longer carry life. There is purpose waking up inside you, and it is demanding movement. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. The doors closing behind you are not punishment. They are proof that your spirit has outgrown what once defined you. God is separating you from environments that kept your vision small and your faith silent. Even now, strength is rising where exhaustion once lived. Do not fear the unfamiliar road ahead. The wilderness became the place where Moses discovered the fire of God. The valley became the place where David learned the sound of victory before the crown ever touched his head. In the same way, this transition is awakening the identity heaven placed within you long before the world spoke limitations over your life. Because what is in front of you requires courage, trust, and a willingness to leave behind what is familiar. Before we go any further, if your spirit is telling you that this word is meant for you, then respond right now. Do not silence the stirring you feel inside. There are moments when heaven calls your name quietly, and there are moments when the call becomes impossible to ignore. This is one of those moments. Something eternal is reaching for your attention because your life was never meant to drift without purpose. You were chosen to awaken, chosen to stand, chosen to carry light in a generation drowning in noise. The enemy works hardest against those marked for transformation. That is why so many have felt isolated, exhausted, or unseen. But even Elijah, hidden in the cave believing he was alone, discovered that God had preserved thousands who still carried the fire. You are not as alone as your battles tried to convince you. There are people being gathered from every broken road, every hidden struggle, every silent night of questioning, and they are awakening together at the sound of God's voice. Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. There is power when hearts rise together in faith and agreement. Every soul that connects to this message becomes part of something larger than fear, larger than pain, larger than the limitations placed on them by the world. This is not about empty attention or human recognition. This is about alignment, about people finding the courage to step fully into the identity heaven has been calling out of them since the beginning. So do not hold back your response to what God is igniting within you. Let your agreement become an act of faith. Let your presence become a declaration that your spirit is awake and ready for what comes next. Because together, we are partners in a divine assignment here on earth. Your generosity is making a real and lasting impact, even in ways your eyes have not yet seen. Every act of faith, every moment of obedience, becomes a seed heaven breathes upon. Like the widow's oil that kept flowing in hidden rooms, what is surrendered to God never leaves empty. It multiplies. It reaches places your hands could never touch alone. You were not drawn here by accident. Something sacred has been building beneath the surface of your life. And the message you are about to hear carries the weight of divine timing. The spirit within you already recognizes it. As this word unfolds, the confusion, the delays, and the battles you carried will begin to make sense. And when the truth fully reaches your heart, you will understand why heaven insisted you could not miss this. Chosen one, let us slow down and go deeper. God has never struggled to reveal his power. The heavens still declare his glory, and his voice still moves through silence, strong enough to awaken the soul. But many hearts have become crowded with noise, chasing what fades while overlooking what carries eternal weight. Like Elijah waiting for God in the wind and earthquake, only to encounter him in the still, small voice. Heaven often speaks where distraction cannot survive. The distance was never created by God's absence. The issue is what our hearts have learned to prioritize. Many people think their biggest spiritual problem is sin, but often the deeper danger is distraction. Not the loud rebellion that everyone can see, but the silent drift that slowly pulls the heart away from the voice of God. The enemy does not always destroy through darkness. Sometimes he simply keeps souls busy, overwhelmed, exhausted, and surrounded by constant noise until they forget what heaven feels like. A distracted spirit loses sight of its calling long before it realizes it has wandered. Look at Martha, consumed with many things, while Mary sat near the feet of Jesus, choosing the one thing that could not be taken from her. The battle was never only about actions. It was about attention. What captures your focus eventually shapes your identity. And many have been feeding their fears more than their faith, listening to chaos more than conviction, carrying burdens God never asked them to hold. But something inside you is waking up now. The fog is lifting. The endless noise that once ruled your thoughts is beginning to lose its grip, because your spirit remembers where its true life comes from. God is calling you back to the secret place, back to the stillness where identity is restored and purpose becomes clear again. Not everything demanding your attention deserves your agreement. Not every voice speaking into your life carries truth. The world keeps pushing souls to move faster, fear more, consume more, but heaven speaks differently. Heaven calls you inward before it sends you outward. And in the middle of all the pressure, all the confusion, all the endless distraction, the voice of God still whispers with authority, "Be still and know that I am God." That verse is not mainly about relaxation. It is a call to silence every voice competing with the authority of God inside your spirit. Stillness is where illusions begin to break, and where the soul remembers who it truly belongs to. Jacob encountered God in the lonely night, and by morning he no longer carried the same identity. In the quiet place, heaven reshapes what fear tried to define. What you continually focus on will eventually form the atmosphere of your life. If your eyes remain fixed on chaos, anxiety will grow stronger than your faith. If your attention stays chained to disappointment, hope will slowly lose its voice. But when your spirit turns fully toward God, something powerful awakens within you. Peace becomes stronger than panic. Vision rises above confusion. The noise of the world begins to lose its control. The heart was never designed to carry constant fear. It was created to recognize the presence of God. And when His voice becomes louder than every distraction around you, doubt will shrink, fear will lose its grip, and even the giants before you will appear smaller. But if your focus remains trapped in darkness, your confidence will shrink. If your attention keeps turning toward money, fear of lack will slowly take root in your spirit. If your mind remains fixed on problems, anxiety will begin to feel more familiar than faith. Whatever continually holds your focus eventually shapes the condition of your soul. This is why so many feel drained, even while searching for peace in places that can never sustain it. But Isaiah declared, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." Peace is born when the mind stops wandering through fear and becomes anchored in the presence of God. Like Daniel resting in the lion's den while danger surrounded him, there is a confidence heaven awakens that cannot be shaken by outward storms. Your spirit was never created to live chained to constant worry. You were chosen to carry a deeper stillness, a strength rooted beyond circumstances. The more your thoughts dwell in God's presence, the more fear loses its authority over you. Clarity begins to rise, strength returns. Your heart no longer reacts to every wave around it, because it has found a greater foundation. Peace is not just a feeling, it is a fruit of where your mind lives. Many people think worship is only singing, but worship is deeper than sound. It is whatever continually receives the attention, trust, and devotion of your heart. What you magnify in secret will eventually shape your spirit. Some have unknowingly bowed to fear, success, approval, or pain, allowing those things to speak louder than the voice of God within them. But when the heart turns fully back toward God, chains begin to loosen. Like the woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment after years of suffering, healing starts the moment faith reaches beyond distraction and lays hold of His presence. As your focus returns to the one who created you, fear loses its throne, confusion begins to break, and the heart starts healing. Jesus taught this principle clearly. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The soul always moves toward what it values most. What you protect, pursue, and constantly return to begins shaping the atmosphere of your inner life. Some people spend years feeding distractions while their spirit quietly grows, weak from hunger. But God is awakening awareness inside you now. Like the prodigal son finally recognizing the emptiness of the far country, something within you is beginning to remember where true life exists. This is not condemnation. The point is to make you aware, to reveal what has been occupying your attention so your heart can return to the presence that restores identity, purpose, and peace. When God shows you that your attention is divided, it is not rejection. It is mercy reaching into the hidden places of your soul before distraction steals more of your calling. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. The moment light exposes what has been pulling your heart away, chains begin to weaken. God does not reveal these things to shame you, but to awaken you. Like Martha, overwhelmed by many concerns, while Mary remained at the feet of Jesus, many souls have been exhausted by noise, pressure, and endless striving. Yet deep within, the spirit still longs for the one thing that truly gives life. In the presence of God, identity becomes clear again, fear begins to lose its voice, and the restless heart starts returning home. Mary chose the better portion. Distraction is not always sinful. Sometimes the very things pulling your attention away are responsibilities, opportunities, and burdens that appear good on the surface. Even noble tasks can slowly consume the space where intimacy with God once lived. The enemy does not always tempt with darkness. Sometimes he overwhelms the soul with endless movement until the spirit forgets how to rest in the presence of God. Like the church in Ephesus that labored faithfully yet left its first love, many have remained busy, while their hearts quietly drifted from the fire that once awakened them. But God is calling you back beyond performance, beyond exhaustion, beyond the pressure to constantly prove your worth. Your identity was never meant to be built on striving. Heaven is not asking for a distracted servant with an empty spirit, and God wants you free, not just busy. Revelation chapter 3 verse 20 says Jesus stands at the door and knocks. Even now, his presence is reaching toward hearts worn down by pressure, noise, and silent exhaustion. Many people think they are simply tired, but deep within, the soul is longing for reconnection. There is an emptiness success cannot fill, and a weariness that rest alone cannot heal. Like David crying out in the wilderness for the presence of God more than water, your spirit was created for communion, not distance. The ache you feel is not weakness. It is the sound of heaven calling you closer again. God is not asking for more performance, more striving, or more pretending. What your soul truly needs is not more activity, it is more presence. The reason distraction is dangerous is because it slowly changes what your heart longs for. Constant noise, endless entertainment, and shallow comforts can quietly numb the spirit until the presence of God no longer feels familiar. Few people notice the drift while it is happening. The soul simply grows colder one compromise at a time, like Samson losing his strength before realizing the spirit had departed. Many have allowed distractions to steal their sensitivity to God, but heaven is awakening you before the fire fully fades. What you continually welcome into your heart will eventually shape your desires, your thoughts, and your direction. That is why Scripture warns with urgency. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guarding your heart also means guarding what enters your mind. Not every voice deserves access to your spirit, and not every environment carries life. Some atmospheres slowly drain discernment, filling the soul with confusion, fear, and noise until the heart forgets how to recognize the presence of God. What repeatedly enters your spirit will eventually shape the direction of your life. Like Nehemiah rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem stone by stone, there are boundaries God is calling you to restore around your inner life. This is not restriction, it is protection for the calling resting over you. Heaven is not asking you to become perfect before drawing near again. God is simply waiting for your heart to open fully, because He is already willing. Your part is to draw near, not with perfection, not with performance, but with a willing heart that still longs for the presence of God beneath all the noise. Sometimes the return begins quietly, with a few moments of stillness, a whispered cry in the middle of exhaustion, or a single verse that suddenly feels alive again. Small steps taken toward God carry more power than you realize. Like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, whose hearts burned as Jesus walked beside them, many are discovering that heaven has never truly left them. The fire begins to return little by little. Clarity awakens. Peace rises again in hidden places. God is not demanding grand displays before He meets you. He responds to hunger, to openness, to the soul willing to come close again. The goal is reconnection. So, today, chosen one, heaven is calling your attention back to what is eternal, not toward fear, noise, or endless striving, but toward the presence of God that restores the soul from within. Like Isaiah trembling before the holiness of God and leaving transformed, reverence awakens the heart to who you truly are. The closer you draw to Him, the weaker confusion becomes. This is where restless spirits find stability again. This is where identity rises above distraction and fear loses its voice. When your mind remains anchored in God instead of the chaos surrounding you, peace no longer depends on circumstances. It becomes part of your spirit, steady and unshaken through every storm. Peace will become something you carry. Now that we have uncovered the root, you can begin to see why the battle over your attention has always been deeper than distraction alone. What fills your mind eventually shapes your identity. Fear repeated long enough begins to feel like truth. Negativity entertained daily slowly builds chains around the soul. But when the mind is awakened by the voice of God, something powerful begins to shift from the inside out. Like Gideon hiding in weakness until heaven called him a mighty warrior, many have been living beneath identities shaped by fear instead of purpose. God is not only changing your circumstances, He is restoring the way you see yourself. As His truth replaces confusion, your spirit begins to rise into the calling that was placed over your life long before the world tried to define you. Transformation does not begin outwardly first. It begins in the hidden places of thought, focus, and belief. The renewed mind creates room for renewed strength, renewed vision, and renewed peace. This is why Scripture declares with authority, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Transformation does not start with behavior. The battle begins in the mind, where fear and truth compete for your agreement every single day. The enemy understands that if your focus can be captured by panic, doubt, and confusion, your faith will slowly weaken before you even recognize the attack. That is why so many battles feel exhausting long before anything outward happens. Like Peter sinking the moment his eyes left Jesus and fixed on the storm, what holds your attention will determine whether you stand or fall. But heaven is teaching your spirit to respond differently now. The noise may still exist around you, yet something stronger is rising within you. Your thoughts no longer have to bow to fear. Your heart no longer has to be ruled by anxiety. The shift begins when your focus returns to God, and in the middle of uncertainty, you responded with faith instead of panic. Let us look at Peter for a moment. He stepped onto impossible waters because his eyes were fixed on Jesus, not on the storm around him. As long as his focus remained on the voice calling him forward, fear had no power to pull him under. But the moment he turned his attention toward the wind and waves, doubt entered, and he began to sink. This is how many souls lose strength without realizing it. The storm becomes louder than the presence of God. Fear becomes more familiar than faith. Yet even while Peter was sinking, Jesus immediately reached out his hand. That is the mercy of God. Even when distraction weakens you, heaven has not abandoned you. The voice that called you is still calling. The hand that lifted Peter is still extended toward you. Grace is still near. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 6 reminds us that God disciplines those He loves. Spiritual discipline is not punishment. It is training for a soul being prepared to carry greater purpose. Like Jesus rising early to seek the Father before the crowds demanded His attention, the first moments of your day hold power. What you seek first begins shaping the atmosphere of your spirit. When God becomes your first focus instead of your last resort, something within you begins to align. Fear loses its control before the day even begins. Your heart becomes steadier, your thoughts clearer, your spirit stronger. These quiet moments are not small in heaven's eyes. Every time you choose God before distraction, before pressure, before noise, it tells your heart that God is first. And when God is first, everything else begins to fall into its proper place. Decisions become clearer, relationships become healthier, and the weight that once overwhelmed your mind starts losing its power. Like Solomon asking for wisdom before riches and receiving both, the soul that seeks God above all else begins to walk with deeper clarity and discernment. Many people wonder why life feels heavy, even while they keep chasing more. But the heart was never created to thrive disconnected from its source. When distraction rules, purpose slowly fades, and even the things that once brought joy begin to feel empty. The fire weakens little by little until you barely recognize the passion you once carried. That is why some days You feel less passionate than before. Often, dryness is not the absence of God. It is the result of a heart that has slowly turned its attention toward too many other voices. The soul becomes weary when it feeds on pressure, distraction, and constant noise, while neglecting the presence that was meant to sustain it. Like a branch separated from the vine, strength begins to fade little by little. But God has not moved away from you. Heaven is calling your spirit back to the living water that restores what exhaustion tried to drain. When your heart begins seeking Him again, even in quiet and imperfect moments, something shifts within you. The fog starts lifting, passion begins returning, fear loses its grip on your thoughts. The deeper your attention rests in God's presence, the steadier your spirit becomes. Your peace becomes stable. Philippians chapter 4 verse 8 instructs believers to fix their minds on what is true, noble, pure, and worthy of praise. What your thoughts continually rest upon will either strengthen your spirit or slowly drain it. The mind cannot remain filled with fear and still carry the fullness of peace God desires to give you. Like Joshua meditating on the word day and night before leading people into promise, spiritual strength is built through steady focus, not occasional emotion. Some days your attention may wander, and some moments will feel heavy. But God is not demanding flawless performance from you. Heaven honors the heart that keeps returning. Real discipline is not perfection. It is the willingness to return your focus to God. Imagine a life where your mind no longer controls you through fear, overthinking, and constant anxiety. A life where your thoughts are no longer chained to every storm around you because your spirit has learned to rest in the presence of God. This is the freedom Heaven has been calling you toward all along. Like Paul and Silas worshiping in prison while chains surrounded them, peace can exist even in the middle of pressure when the heart is anchored in God instead of circumstances. Fear loses its authority when faith becomes stronger than the voices of doubt. The darkness may still whisper, but it no longer defines you. As your mind returns again and again to the presence of God, something steady begins rising within you. You stop fighting every battle alone. You stop carrying every burden as if everything depends on you. In moments that once would have broken you, you remember you are not alone. You are too called to live scattered. Your spirit was not created to be pulled in 100 directions by fear, pressure, and endless distraction. Chosen ones carry influence when their hearts remain anchored in God. Like Esther entering the palace for such a time as this, clarity comes when purpose becomes greater than confusion. The more your attention rests in God's presence, the more your life begins to reflect His peace. Noise loses its control. Unnecessary burdens begin to fall away. You stop chasing everything the world demands and start discerning what truly matters. Wisdom grows quieter but stronger. Your spirit becomes steady instead of restless. You simplify. You guard your mornings because the first voice you listen to often shapes the direction of your entire day. Before the noise of the world rushes in, you make room for the presence of God. Like Jesus withdrawing to lonely places to pray, your spirit grows stronger when it learns to dwell in stillness before pressure begins speaking. You return to the Word, not as routine, but as living bread for a weary soul. You protect quiet moments where fear loses volume and heaven becomes clear again. Little by little, the chaos inside begins to settle. Your thoughts stop running endlessly. Your heart becomes steady. In the hidden place where attention turns back toward God, peace deepens, clarity awakens, and strength returns. Your future will be shaped by what you consistently focus on. The heart always moves in the direction of its deepest attention. If your mind remains fixed on fear, confusion will grow stronger. But when your spirit stays anchored in God, even chaos loses the power to shake you. Like Noah building the ark while the world mocked what he could not yet see, faith creates stability long before the storm arrives. What you return to daily becomes the foundation of your life. This is why God keeps calling your attention higher, beyond distraction, beyond anxiety, beyond temporary things that cannot sustain your soul. As your focus settles into His presence, your thoughts begin to clear, your spirit grows steady, and fear slowly releases its grip. Keep your eyes on God, and watch how your life begins to realign under the steady hand of God. There comes a moment when the soul grows tired of carrying fear, confusion, and endless mental noise. This is that moment. God is awakening hearts that have been distracted, weary, and spiritually drained, calling them back into clarity and peace. Like dry bones rising at the sound of God's breath, minds once trapped in anxiety are being renewed from within. The past no longer has authority over your identity. Your focus is shifting, your spirit is strengthening, and as your attention returns fully to God, peace begins to settle deeply within you, steady enough to carry you into the future without fear. We will not live scattered. We will not allow fear, distraction, or the noise of this world to pull our hearts away from the presence of God any longer. Like Joshua declaring, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." A new resolve is rising within those who have been awakened by this message. The days ahead will not be led by confusion, but by clarity, peace, and unwavering focus on the voice of God. Every soul that carries this light forward becomes part of something greater than itself. Hope reaches farther, strength multiplies, hearts begin returning to God again. Thank you for standing with this mission, for helping this message continue reaching weary spirits, and for being a blessing to this ministry.